Isn't there a gift ban though, in terms of, how much are these cookies then, like $8?
$2.99.
I knew it, put my back.
Here, I'll use all mine.
You got your recorder going?
Let's not call the meeting to order yet. That's just a wake-up call.
Had my mouth full of cookie.
We're not worried about cookies. Now we'll call the meeting to order. Everybody wanna join us in the pledge of allegiance? Pledge of allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank everybody for coming tonight. Motion to approve the agenda. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Police chief?
Austin graduated last week, so he's back out working for us. Shop at the cop went very well. All the kids got a lot of nice presents and had a good time. Tomorrow night, I think we're helping security for Senator Clover or something like that. She'll be here tomorrow night, and so we'll be helping with that. So that's all I got.
Fire chief?
Everything's going pretty good right now. We're having a big run of car accidents. People are having a hard time keeping them either upright on the road or hitting each other. So just a careful reminder to everybody, it is the holiday season. We'll make sure everybody gets home safe to enjoy their families for the holidays. So please be careful out there. We're very fortunate on a pair of them today. They're very fortunate. Nobody really got hurt too bad.
Public comments?
That was quick. Hi, my name is Ted Mounts, and I work for the Census Bureau. And my job is to recruit people to take some of the part-time jobs. These, I made some notes here. My job here, what I'd like to do is to recruit or encourage people to do two things. Maybe consider applying for the job, and also make sure you're gonna be counted. I was looking at some numbers, and this county is around 9,000 people. And I think when you hit the 10,000 mark, I think it has something to do with the funding. So it's kind of important to get that, an accurate count. And the best way to get that is with our local folks doing that. These jobs pay $17.50 an hour and 58 cents a mile. You get trained, you get paid for the training. If you're out driving, you get your 58 cents a mile and you get your $17.50 an hour. There are part-time jobs, part-time meaning less than 40 hours, and also they only last 8-10 weeks, depending on the size of the crew and the initiative you're working on. I'm gonna leave some literature, but it always says census taker, and that's really not the job. It's out, like, next wave coming up is, there are addresses out there that are not registered by like a typical address. We have to have people go out, get to that address, locate it, give them their census, and then record that address. So it's not really going door to door. They're not doing that this time around. Let's see, 1750. Oh, and I guess the last thing I'd say is that the next round after that is like group quarters. You go and count people that are in nursing homes and you interview those people and that kind of thing. So there's a lot of good jobs. And I've been doing this since last March. And I can tell you that I haven't met anyone that does this or has done census in the past that hasn't said they've enjoyed it. They enjoyed the people, the work, and the money was good. So I just want to encourage you to consider doing that. We have, last thing, we need 41 applicants and we only have 31 now for this county. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I'll leave some literature with Sandy.
Presentation of credit from SIEC.
Hi, those of you that don't know me, I'm Greg Proctor. I'm the general manager at Southern Iowa Electric. I'm gonna just give a little background. On January 1st, 2019, SIEC passed a power supply rate reduction onto the city of Bloomfield within the energy portion of the rate structure. This was a 5% reduction that was made possible by SIEC's membership in Northeast Power and Associated Electric, who were able to make considerable off-system energy sales the previous year into other regions of the United States. SIEC, or AECI as associated, does an exceptional job managing generation assets. I'm happy to inform the mayor and the city council that Southern Iowa Electric is extending the 2019 energy rate reduction into 2020 with an additional reduction of 1 mil per kilowatt hour, which equates to 1/10 of a cent of savings. In addition, I'd like to present the mayor and the city council with this replica check in the amount of $38,000 that will appear on the city's January invoice for December energy purchase as a credit. This is a result of the rate structure established within the 2015 wholesale electric agreement between Southern Iowa Electric and the city, being dissimilar to the contract Southern Iowa Electric has with its power supplier. SIEC is subject to a 3-part rate that includes charges for energy, base demand, and peak demand, with demand paid 1 year in arrears, while the city's rate structure is subject to energy and actual peak. Disregarding the portion of the contract involving the dual fuel generator capacity made available to Southern Iowa Electric. This misalignment of rate structures made the application of the 2019 pass-through power supply reduction more challenging and resulted in an additional $38,000 of revenue. Southern Iowa Electric is a not-for-profit organization that returns margins in excess of expenses back to the member consumers. This $38,000 represents employing this philosophy with our wholesale members as well. So Mayor Wiggin, I'd like to present you this $38,000 check on behalf of Southern Iowa Electric.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you, Greg.
Thanks, Southern Iowa Electric. All you got, Greg.
Yes, thank you. And Merry Christmas.
Yeah. You want a cookie?
Had plenty today. Seems to be some button stress.
Review sanitary sewer action with HR Green.
Hi, I'm Matt Wildman. Good to see you guys again. I passed out 2 reports to you to read at your leisure. The first one being a sanitary sewer action plan. So just to give you kind of the brief background on this, and then I'll go page by page through each one of these reports. So hope you're well rested. You guys received a new NPDES permit that had a consent order in it. In that consent order, it stated that you had to do upgrades to the wastewater treatment plant in order to comply with a number of things: ammonia, BOD, dissolved oxygen, E. coli, a number of factors that you were in violation with, and the current plant was not able to meet limits that were coming down the pike in this new permit. So the wastewater treatment plant was one aspect of that consent order. The other aspect of the consent order and the other side of things was the sanitary sewer. There's a number of overflows that happen at manholes in town during wet weather conditions, during heavy storm events. So there are manholes that are overflowing, lids that have popped off in the past, that sort of thing. So the consent order requires you to fix both of those things within the 5-year period, which is coming up here in a couple of years. So at the beginning of the project here, we took the path of, we're going to draft an integrated plan. That integrated plan will get submitted to the DNR and the EPA, and that will say the city cannot afford to do both of these things at the same time. The wastewater treatment plant and the estimated repairs on the sanitary sewer are beyond the financial capabilities of what is deemed affordable. Now, the DNR and the state consider 2% of median household income within the community to be affordable from a rate standpoint. So that is the maximum that you can be charged the residents before it becomes deemed unaffordable. So if you were to take on and attack all of these projects at once, the user rates that would be required would be much higher than that. So the integrated plan has been written to basically say, here's what we can afford, and here's how long it's going to take us to do that. So the sanitary sewer action plan, the first report here, is basically a bunch of background information of existing data that you have, of previous reports, of different approaches and different methodologies that can be taken to look at your sanitary sewer and develop a prioritized action plan for going in and making sensible repairs in a manner that's going to give you the most bang for your buck and help reduce those SSOs down to hopefully zero in the future. So there's outlined in there is smoke testing and televising and flow metering and condition assessment of your assets, which would be your manholes and your lift stations and your piping within the community. So all of those things are kind of encompassed into how can we fix what's there. On the other side of things, to reduce flow and everything into your sewer system, you can look at source reduction, which would be public education through the form of informational flyers, questionnaires, and public meetings that can be held to inform the residents that if you make sure that your house is not discharging sump pumps or have area drains out in your yard that are going into the sanitary sewer, you don't have roof leaders going down into a tile line that goes into the sanitary sewer. If the residents can take responsibility for some of that stuff and double check, and you get voluntary reduction, that right up front can help a lot with that flow, and then you don't have to do things in the sewer system. So, and what that does in turn is it helps the ratepayers not have to pay elevated rates for you guys to do engineering controls essentially out in your sewer system through pipe replacement, manhole replacement, lining, upsizing sewer pipes, that sort of thing. So that action plan is basically a background in a lot of that information. There's a couple pages in here I'll highlight real quick. Right in the background, page 2-1, there was a previous study that was done by French Reneker and Stanley, and in that they had 8 main recommendations to come out of that. Raise manholes, 7.6 and 7.9 on the south branch of the west trunk, modify pump controls on the East Street pump station, modify pump controls on the Good Street pump station, equip manholes that routinely overflow with sensors to record frequency and duration of those overflows, put in a rainfall gauge, embark on water source reduction program, which is that public education piece. There's a number of things, televising, gathering more data, that sort of thing. That was a recommendation that came out of that report. And I know that there has been work that has been going on, kind of routine maintenance work, televising work, minor repairs that have happened, and the actual number of SSOs over the years has slowly been decreasing. It's not down to zero by any means yet, but we're starting to see that reduce. So if there is annual budget and operating expenses that are available to continue that sort of stuff as we're working through the sewer treatment plant and getting that online, I would encourage that to continue, and we'll continue to monitor the flow coming into the plant, monitor the number of SSOs when those occur, and continue to track that to see where we're getting. So that's been done. It's estimated right now if you were to rehab all of the sewer in town to get a tight sewer system, which may or may not actually help tremendously, because you could still have private service I&I that is contributing a fair amount to it. If you replace and line all the sewer in town, the estimate right now, present dollars, is $10.2 million, or $665,000 annually for the next 30 years, essentially, to repair all the sewer in town. And that would help, and hopefully that would eliminate SSOs. That's not what we're recommending doing at this time, but that's just to give you kind of the scale of, that's not affordable when you're building a wastewater treatment plant right now. That's a multi-million-dollar facility and you're gonna have that debt load also. So that's kind of where that stands. And then on page 4-3, there's an implementation schedule and estimated cost in here for capital improvements that you're currently doing, and this, I'll kind of touch on this again with the integrated plan. But you can see here in table 4-1, the project fiscal year that you're looking at, and then we've got the wastewater treatment plant, we've got public outreach, flow monitoring, televising, data collection and condition assessment, modeling, and then the wastewater treatment plant improvements, sewer master plan, which is the part that we'll talk about here in a second. And then there's lake impoundment, I&I reduction study, and then sewer improvements, phase 1 and phase 2. Based on the capital that you would have available at the time debts are retired and everything else, we're looking at about $2.5 million that are available in the years 2022 to 2025 to do 2 sewer projects that would be of some significance. So $1 million sewer projects essentially at that point. And then from there, the next sewer improvements that would be capital projects wouldn't happen until 2045. And that would be when the wastewater treatment plant debt retires. So that's, in a nutshell, what the sanitary sewer action plan is going through. Is there's a lot of information in here, a lot of background information on why you do different things and how to go about doing different things and how we're going to develop a plan and a schedule. And the ultimate goal is to prioritize areas where you get the most bang for your buck and get the most reduction in inflow and infiltration into the sewer system to help eliminate those SSOs down the road. Does that make sense? That's about as brief as I can go on that action plan. Do you have any questions on that? Okay, so that's that one. If you want to move on to the next.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead. Is this whole 6, 7, 8.5 million in the SRF loan?
Off of that table that you're looking at?
Yeah. Or is the last $2 million expenditures separate?
The last 2 million are separate expenditures. So in this, you see the engineering of 393 for the wastewater treatment plant improvements and 178, which is down on about line 7 or 8, 178,000. Those are under contract costs right now. Those are included in the SRF loan. The $6.5 million wastewater treatment plant improvement project there, that is included in the SRF loan. The 60,000 and the 2 $1 million projects in the OPC column are not included in the current SRF loan. And the engineering costs over here, the public outreach is included, the flow monitoring, televising, condition assessment, the modeling, none of those, the sewer master plan, none of those items are included in the current SRF loan. And those are not items that you have under contract at the time.
You went too fast.
I'm going to circle around with the integrated plan. The integrated plan is actually the more important document at this point. And if you skip reading the sewer action plan altogether, a lot of the information in the sewer action plan is included, is pulled over into the integrated plan in a little more brief form. So we don't go into quite as much detail.
I have just a couple of questions on the, again, the sanitary sewer action plan.
Yep.
You talked about this. First of all, you made reference to the consent order.
Mhm.
Is that through the EPA?
It's
Okay,
EPA.
through the
Yep.
EPA. And then when you made mention of the repair of wastewater treatment plant sanitary sewer, one of the items that you mentioned, and I just want to get your thoughts on this about the sanitary sewer overflows. I know we've had these in the previous community where they had significant storm events, and if they exceeded a certain amount, then you were in violation of that decree. Is that the same as we're talking about here in this community as well?
Yes.
What is that limit then of those significant storm events? As I understand, it's annually. count?
It's annually. They have a presumptive approach, is what they call it, that they allow, I think it's in the neighborhood of 4 a year. But that doesn't mean that if you have 4 in one event, that counts as 4. Because each manhole that would overflow is considered a separate event.
All right. That's all I had. Thank you, Mayor.
Do you want me to roll into the next one? Okay, perfect. I'm trying to go fast, so I apologize for that. The integrated plan is the document that we submit to the DNR and the EPA that says, we can't afford to do this, here's what we can afford to do, and here's the time schedule where we can afford to do it. And so in this integrated plan, we've gathered a bunch of capital improvement information, CIP budget information basically from the city. And what we found in that is that as far as GO debt goes, you don't have a lot of capacity left there to accumulate more GO debt. And the debt capacity that you do have there, you want to reserve for emergency projects, for street repair projects, for other capital improvements around town that are non-revenue based type projects. So we don't want to outline that there's GO budget available that has to be spent on sanitary sewer projects, because if it goes in the integrated plan, then the DNR says you have to do this. So if we say you're going to spend $50,000 or $100,000 or $200,000 a year doing sewer improvements out of your GO, you have to do that, then according to the DNR. So we don't want to put you in that position. So we've said that the GO is going to be obligated for other capital projects, streets and stormwater and that sort of stuff. So we don't want to touch the GO, which leaves you only revenue-based bonding to utilize. So it has to be user rates that would fund any of these sewer improvement projects. So what we've done here in the integrated plan, in some communities we'll go, okay, we've got to eliminate our extra water coming into this treatment plant. And if we send that to the treatment plant and we reduce it significantly, then that changes the size of our wastewater treatment plant. And so that makes us right-size that treatment plant. Hopefully we can save a bunch of money by building it half as big as what we would have had to if we didn't get this flow out. So they approach the sewer first and they say, we're gonna hit the sewer hard, we're gonna get as much flow as we can out of there, then we're gonna document that and we're gonna submit these as our design flows that are much lower than what we're currently seeing at the plant. In this case, the approach that we took in the beginning is you've got some nice big lagoons out there that are doing a good job of doing what they're supposed to do. Yes, they're not getting you down to the limits that you need to get down to on these new constituents. They're new limits that you have for ammonia, for example. They're not getting you there, but they're knocking down a lot of the organic matter and they're reducing the waste strength tremendously. So we're going to reuse those lagoons. Bond paid for infrastructure, we're going to keep that and help keep the cost down as much as possible. With the lagoon system, the lagoon is sized based on an average wet weather flow, which is the wettest 30-day period that you have. If you reduce your flow tremendously in your treatment system or in your sewer system, you're reducing max flows. So you get rainfall, your max flow comes up, it goes back down in a day or two, most likely down into an average flow number. So to reduce the flow in the sewer system tremendously does not change the size of lagoons basically at all. So we said we're going to build the treatment plant now. And the other side of continuing with that, I guess, you've got pipes that are conveying wastewater. If they're flowing full, that's all they can carry. So any extra water that gets out on the ground is overflow. And so the pipes are going to continue to carry what they can carry. So when you eliminate that overflow, your pipes may still be full. So you may see zero reduction in the actual flow coming to your plant. In the meantime, you've gotten rid of the SSOs. So that's the goal, is to get rid of the overflow. But if your pipes remain full, then that's about the point where you can stop trying to get more water out, because now it's all getting to the plant like it's supposed to. And the plant's designed to be able to take that. So we've gone the other way, which is let's build the treatment plant first. Now you're complying with all these limits, with E. coli, with ammonia. You're protecting the environment 365 days out of the year. So that's better for the environment to do the treatment plant than it is to fix the SSOs, which may overflow 5 to 10 times a year, so you're only violating your permit 5 to 10 days a year. So that's the approach, and that's how we've written this, the integrated plan, is to say we're doing the treatment plant first, we're spending that money now, we know how big it has to be, we know what we're gonna build it to, and this is going to, any flow you get out of the system increases future capacity for growth and development in the system. So the more you suppress the flows a little bit down the road, the more capacity you free up in the plant for growth, development, that sort of thing. So in the integrated plan, if we go to page 6-8, you can see in here again, it's that same cost table summary that we had in there before. And I kind of highlighted some of that stuff is already under contract, some of it's not. The biggest item in there right now is the sanitary sewer master plan. And the master plan, what the master plan would do is take all existing data that you do have on overflow events, on condition, on location of your manholes, depth of manhole, material type in each manhole, your pipe sizes, your pipe material. We gather all that information, put that into a hydraulic model, we'd run a model. The model would be calibrated to reflect what you're actually seeing using flow metering data and other information from your plant. And we calibrate that and we'd say, hey, these areas the model's showing are overflowing, is that correct? Yes, no. We'd make tweaks to that, get that model as fine-tuned as we can. Then as we go and develop projects and work on continuing to flow monitor, it's all about verification and validation of the data. You say it's gonna do something, you do an improvement, you get that data, and you say, yep, it did what we expected it to do. No, it didn't do quite what we expected to do, and it's just becomes this big iterative process to go through and hit the highest priority areas first. If you go around and do condition assessments on manholes and you find that one area of town is an old neighborhood, has a bunch of brick manholes and they're all failing, you focus efforts to fix that area, record the flow that's coming out of there after a rain event, and validate that data and say, that's an area that we addressed, that one's done now, we move on. You put flow meters out on the system, you record them, you record the data, you look at flow per house, flow per inch diameter of pipe, you find out where the highest areas are, and you deploy flow meters then further upstream in there and try to pinpoint little branch areas that have the highest inflow, smoke test those, televise those, find where the problems are. And you keep using that approach going forward until you develop a plan that's gonna work for the sewer repairs throughout. So that sewer master plan is something that is a planning document that starts you out, that gets the plan in place now for what you're gonna do down the road in the future. And right now we're looking, like I said, at 2045 for future additional sewer improvements. We'd start that now, and in a couple of years, we'd be looking at $2 million projects that fit right now, at least within the budget. And then we'd be waiting and monitoring and doing annual projects that you guys can fit to try to get that down a little bit. Does that make sense? So on the next page after that table is the CIP schedule. And we shared this with Holly, I believe, to basically get an idea of what we're looking at for capital expenditures. So you can see in here what you're looking at for projects and the fiscal years that would be going. The yellow ones are the engineering, orange ones would be bidding, and the green is construction projects. So we've got the wastewater treatment plant, we've got flow metering, we've got construction of phase 1 of the sewers, phase 2 of the sewers in that table. The next page outlines far more detailed CIP that takes you out to year 2044 and looks at what your annual payments and reserve would be. So those are the numbers kind of broken down by project and everything else. And it's a lot to digest. I understand that. So the integrated plan essentially goes into the DNR, like I said, to extend the schedule on your compliance consent order, essentially. When we've done these for communities in the past, We haven't had a whole lot of back and forth with the DNR. They look at it and they say, yep, this seems reasonable. And all of a sudden you'll get a letter that your consent order has been extended out to 2044, 2050, 2055, somewhere in that range. So they're looking at that and they're gonna say, okay, they can't afford to do anything until then, but at that point, now we need to do the sewer improvements. So once that wastewater treatment plant debt gets retired, then you would embark on doing sanitary sewer improvement repairs to eliminate the SSOs. Questions on the integrated plan?
This page here that goes through to 2044 has improvements, phase 1 and improvement phase 2 figured into it cost wise for
Yep.
our annual payment.
Yep. And those we would
And those are
assume,
using the numbers that we've come up with from our increase in sewer rates.
believe so. That's,
Looks like we better hope nobody moves.
yep.
Pretty tight, but.
So one thing that this does not account for is any grant dollars that could be acquired in the process. I would recommend that if you have that capability to apply for grants and look for CDBG grants, that once that master plan is developed and outlines the projects, those will be in a prioritized order of this is what you need to do with the budget. And then we have that to apply for grants. And if you can get a grant, then that one of those projects can be moved up in the schedule. And depending on the reduction you see in the SSOs with each one of those projects, you know, there's hope that by the time you get out there into that 2044 timeframe, that we've taken care of things through that, through, like I said, the public education. And there's examples in the sewer action plan of a questionnaire that's been developed, of informational flyer that can go out. So I'd like you guys to review those and kind of revisit that in the maybe January, February timeframe about getting that information out, holding a public meeting or two to go through that information and try to educate residents on what they can do to try to help out the city as a whole to eliminate these problems before you have to spend that money down the road, and hopefully you won't have to, but.
Mr. Brad, I just have one question. When you made mention of the funding sources, you referenced CDBG. I think you said you've done some work with Hollywood and Area 15, she and I in conversations about that. One of the items that I recall came up was the income survey work that needs to be done, and that's somewhat time sensitive. Is that something that is on the STIP, or do we have requisite data any way to fulfill that need anyway to the CDBG people?
I think a income survey needs to be done again now in order to demonstrate eligibility for the CDBG funding.
So that's something then that you and Area 15 talked about?
We've discussed it.
Very
Yep,
good.
we've discussed it. So that's why I say if, number one, if the community is eligible, if you go through the income survey and everything comes out good and you can continue to apply. I know you've applied and received CDBG grants historically, but I know that existing current income survey is expired or expires here in a week.
Okay.
So any of the future CDBG applications, you're not eligible to apply for because that income survey is no longer valid.
Right, I
So-
understand that, kind of a short shelf life. Mary, that's all I had, thank you.
Yep.
I'll reach out to her then tomorrow as well.
Any other questions?
The sponsored project, that's the time to ask that question.
You can, yeah, and I'll talk about the wastewater treatment plant briefly too. The sponsored project, go ahead.
Cause I got an email today that we was awarded 862, we've been approved for 862,000.
Yes.
And they're gonna set up a meeting and discuss some proposed project stuff, but is that, I mean, I know we've talked a small amount about a couple different items, is that, you got more information, I guess, on the sponsored project, we don't really.
Yep.
It just kinda got brought up at that one meeting when they mentioned putting some solar somewhere or something, and then that kinda.
Yeah. So the application that went in for the wastewater treatment plant included $1 million of solar panels being installed out of the wastewater treatment plant to help offset the energy usage out there. That is not included in the plans and specs that we're planning to bid right now. And if that's something you guys want to move forward with, then you can do that and include that solar, and that is an eligible SRF expense. So with that $8.6 million project that was submitted with the intended use plan, we used that amount and applied for the sponsored project. The sponsored project awards 10%, which is essentially the interest off your loan, is given to you in the form of a grant. So if you decide not to do a sponsored project, you pay $860,000 worth of interest on the wastewater treatment plant loan. If you do a sponsored project, you don't have to, you still pay that $860,000 worth of interest, but it's given to you in the form of you get $860,000 worth of a project also. Does that make sense? So you're paying back the same amount of loan whether or not you do the sponsored project, so you either get this project for no additional cost or you
So you
don't.
get another $1 million worth of work done basically
Yes.
somewhere for free.
Yes, that's, yeah,
For the interest money you pay.
for the interest money that you pay. Yep.
Does it have to be the solar on the sewer plant or whatever the project
No,
qualifies?
it doesn't. So the $1 million of solar, let's say we take that off and we say we're not doing solar, we're not gonna spend that $1 million, and that's A-okay. The sponsored project pays you the lesser of your construction loan amount or the award amount that they gave you. So right now they gave you an $860,000 award. If the treatment plant loan comes in at $760,000, you only get $760,000 worth of sponsored project. So when we sent that IUP application in, we didn't want to send it in at $7.6 million in case you decided to do the solar, because then you would only get 760 because that was the lesser amount of the construction loan versus the
But what
application.
other project would qualify for that?
So the sponsored projects are clean water improvement projects. So just to throw a few things out to be thinking about, that would be any stormwater improvements or water quality improvements. So if you have a stream bank that is highly eroding in an area and you want to do a stream bank stabilization project, that would be eligible, improves water quality. If you want to do permeable pavement or something in the downtown area to allow less runoff and allow water to infiltrate into the soil, that's a water quality improvement project. Stormwater wetlands, bioswales, rain gardens, those types of things, anywhere where you can demonstrate an improvement in water quality, those types of projects are eligible. So we did a watershed assessment with the application for the sponsored project, and in that we identified a number of things. We don't have to do any or all of those. We can utilize that money in different things that you want to. Once that award is made, you still have the discretion to say, okay, based on the award, we identified $5 million worth of projects. We have an $860,000 award. we're gonna do this project or these 2 projects in the area. So it's water quality improvements. So just about anything that improves water quality would be eligible for that sponsored project. So Teresa Stadelman is our expert on that. She's the one that submitted the application, and she's looking to get down here to a meeting in January, February timeframe to come in and talk to you guys about those projects. So if you have a few ideas of things, oh, I know off of 6th Street, there's this area that I think we really need to do something every time it rains. It's cutting this great big gully down through there, and those types of things are what she needs to know, and then she can work in through some site visits and stuff, what areas we would really want to focus on it. And we work with Larry too I mean, you've been around town, you've seen some of these areas where we can do things. We've done ditching with bioswales, we've done downtown planters with native plants that grow up in there, and the water drains off the curb into these planters, filters down into a storm sewer pipe and then goes out, but you have attenuation of the flow, and you also clean it up, clean out any debris and stuff that washes down, cigarette butts and leaves and sand and everything else filters out, and then clean water goes into the creek. So those are some of the things that we've done with that money in the past. So that's what we're looking at, is nothing is cut in stone with that sponsored project yet as far as where you can spend that money. But to get that award, it is getting more and more competitive to get awarded that sponsored project. So you guys got one, so that's good.
So if you went with the solar idea out there, does the sewer treatment plant use that much electricity that would it consume all of the solar power generated, or?
The solar field can only, it wouldn't power the treatment plant. The solar would be fed back into the line, as I understand it. And you can only build that SRF eligibility. You can only build a solar array large enough to offset the power that the treatment plant is using. And it's going to use quite a bit. We've got 3-4 large blowers out there that will be running more or less 24/7 that will consume some power to the tune of $40,000 to $50,000 a year in power consumption. So that's a fair sized solar field that would be able to go out there to offset those costs, and then you get that credit back from the energy company. And I don't know exactly how it works here, but with you guys having your own utility and does that make sense? So, and the solar array is not something that we would actually have any involvement in. So that's something that you would work with somebody else to get that up. And
I just remember when we submitted it, they just threw the solar project in because we didn't have to commit to that project.
Yeah.
More or less
I hope,
project,
yeah, good. I hope that was clear, that I wasn't pushing that on you guys. I was adding that to make that grant, the sponsored project award, to hopefully maximize what that was and cover it just in case you decided that was an area you wanted to go.
I was just trying to kind of see what our options.
Yep.
For projects were.
Yep. And the wastewater treatment plant, right now, we're getting ready to go out to bid to contractors for the wastewater treatment plant. We still don't have a permit yet from the DNR, so we are going to continue to drag our feet a little bit. Now, there is a February 1st compliance date in your permit. The DNR gives you kind of an off the record. We've gotten it on the record with them before, and we will try to do that again here before we do that. They generally give you 60 days before they come in with any kind of enforcement after your date. So if you don't award that contract until March 1st or even up to March 30th, they will not take any enforcement on that until that time. So there's a 60-day buffer in there. Without having the permit, with the holiday and everything else, we'd like those plans to kind of hit the street for a mid-February bid date is kind of our target. And I'm going to talk to the field office and make sure that they can send us at least an email that says, yep, that's fine, no problems. You guys don't have a permit yet. We've got that we can hold over their head is, hey, you guys have had the plans and specs in hand for a long time and we don't have a permit yet.
You need the permit before you get a bid, right?
We don't have to. We need a permit before we award the bid. So we can go out to, well, we need a permit technically before we start construction. So it is a construction permit. So, but if they change anything, we're at risk of change orders and modifying documents. So we like to wait until we get that permit, or at least get a round of comments from them if they have any, that something needs to change before we finally
award it without a permit.
Right,
Are they the ones that get us the permit?
the DNR? Yeah. So I don't see any risk at all.
60 days buffer.
Yeah, I don't see any risk at all in not awarding. I don't see any risk at all by not awarding by February 1st because you guys have done what you have to do to get back on schedule with the compliance schedule, and now we're waiting on the DNR. And when I've done that in the past, they don't, even if they're a year or two in review, which I have had happen, they don't put any enforcement on as long as the ball's in their court, so.
Any correspondence that I've had from the DNR has all been go, go, go. I mean, nothing holding it back.
Yeah, other than you don't have a construction permit, yeah. So, and we've talked to the permit reviewer and it is on his desk. He's gonna try to review it the last week of this month. So I expect to see something, a permit, probably mid-January. And if we go out to bid the first part of January and then get that permit, we can incorporate any changes we might have in an addendum and then have the bid date and then award and move on with construction starting in the spring, so.
How many homes are on our utility service?
1,242.
I'm not just pulling that out of there.
I wouldn't have been able to pull that number out of there.
It looks like
Can you use numbers, real numbers instead of the Roman numbers so we can read them?
Formatting in Word.
1,254.
Is what it says. So what's in here?
Cause I was thinking for some reason when we was doing the rate increases, I was thinking we was using 1,242 or something. But 1,254 is the number you guys use.
This went up by a few houses, or housing incentive.
Anybody else got anything else for Matt? You got anything else for us?
That is it, unless you have questions. So the next agenda item I asked to be put on there in case you wanted to take action and approve that integrated plan for submittal. I understand you got it tonight. If you guys want to read through that and look to approve that or ask more questions at the next meeting, that is fine too. Either way, I just want it on there in case you said, yep, we trust whatever you wrote in here, go for it. But I do want to caution you that what is in the integrated plan then becomes in your consent order when the DNR, if the DNR approves this plan as is, that becomes your new consent order with that schedule in it, so. You basically commit to doing what we say we're gonna do in that integrated plan. But if we don't approve it and we don't submit it, then you've got to get rid of all your SSOs in the next 3 years, so.
Has anybody got any questions about the integrated plan anymore? I mean, that's my opinion, we just need to trust you that you guys have done what's right for us to fit our budgets and schedules and what we need to do to move forward. I mean, I don't have enough knowledge to change that plan.
I was gonna say,
I don't hardly have enough to read it.
Foreign language.
Mr. Mayor, one of the items I want to do, and I mentioned this back when we were speaking on the phone the other day, not long after I came on board, visiting with some information the mayor shared with me. It was a scheduling in way of certain capital improvements in dollar amounts and the funding amounts, so if it's all right, I'm going to forward that to you tomorrow because I remember the conversation with Holly Berg there in 15. I have $600,000 on the brain. When you and I talked the other day, that was a little bit low. I'm going to forward that to him and make sure that we're singing from the same hymnal anyway on the source of funds and use of funds. Because mine, I think, are perhaps of a different project. There are 4 of them that are listed, so I'll send that to him tomorrow.
Okay.
So I thank you, Mayor.
Matt, you might have covered this, but, so you got you got the same, like Excel graph on both of these. And phase one and phase two on, the integrated plan is like $250,000 higher on each phase. Can you cover that?
One was it, they were $1 million on one and one 250 on the other.
Must be figuring in pay raises.
Super plan used to be.
Yeah, the integrated plan has the right numbers in it. That reflects the actual amount that was available and determined. The sewer action plan, I need to update that table in there, so.
Okay, fine.
I was gonna say that table's got some age on it, 'cause I think we've seen that table clear back from the beginning.
Yeah.
Yep.
I remember the $1 million.
So we've updated that with the new numbers we got out of the CIP budget. So the integrated plan does reflect the right numbers. The sewer action plan, quite frankly, is, like I said, it's an informational document. There's a bunch of ordinance information in the back of that in the appendices, that you can look at that or give to the city attorney to look at to see if you need to do some code changes.
Yeah, that's what I was, is there stuff in there we're gonna need to do some changes to on the codes with all this?
It talks about, there's different options, there's lateral insurance programs that you can look at, there's city-sponsored type. You buy into this and the city will take care of the laterals if there's any repairs or replacement that needs to be done on that. And so there's some incentives and some different programs that different communities have done. There's changes in the ordinance for point of sale inspections on a home to make sure there's no sump pumps and make sure all the plumbing is done correctly. There's, like I said, there's examples in there of different ordinances that different communities have done that have implemented some of the stuff on the private lateral side and also holistically with the ordinances. So some of that stuff is code considerations, and we'll talk to you more about some of those things as we go into the public education piece of this and work on that sewer master plan, moving forward at some point.
That's very good. One last question, and I'll stop. I noticed in looking through the book here on the integrated plan, one of them that caught my attention, this is from April of 2016, but it refers to violations of the Clean Water Act.
Mhm.
And there's some remedies listed at the EPA has set forth. All items being equal, and maybe an overriding statement. Have those violations been corrected, addressed?
That's what this
will do.
That's what this book and this $8.5 million is gonna do.
That's, yes. So there were some reporting violations, and I assume that Jeremy is reporting stuff as he's supposed to now, as opposed to what happened historically, and I can't speak to any of that stuff that was before I was involved here as why or what. So I assume all the reporting's being done correctly. Everything that revolves around effluent water quality is being addressed in the wastewater treatment plant upgrade. Everything revolving around the SSOs is covered in the integrated plan, as we're going to come up with that prioritized action plan to resolve SSO issues.
Okay, that's all right. Thank you, Mayor.
Is that all you have for us? Does anybody got anything else for Matt? I do have something on. I'll call you tomorrow.
Okay. That sounds good.
Or next week. Next week, you guys in the offices next week?
Yeah, except for Tuesday, Wednesday, I think. And I'm always reachable on my cell, even if you call me on Christmas. I wish you a Merry Christmas.
Yeah, you too. So it might be the only day I have available to call you.
That's fine. I'm free. Do you guys want me to go ahead and submit that?
We're gonna vote on that.
Okay. Thank you.
Does it need to go through legal before we accept or approve it?
I don't know if there's anything legal can do for us on this, is there? On the integrated plan, I don't.
Well, I didn't know about the code changes or anything.
Those are recommendations that are in the action plan for things that you
The
can do.
integrated plan, the word basically is the pay schedule and all that kind of, is that, isn't it, basically what we're?
Yep, that's
submitting?
essentially what the integrated plan is.
The integrated plan-
Holly did review that and said that looked good to her.
So we're gonna do all these steps that's here in the time frames that they have them listed is what we're approving.
Mayor, one question then, when those, I'm going to point out, when all those are satisfied then, is that when this becomes part of the consent order, consent decree?
They'll revise your compliance date, your compliance schedule, based and incorporate the integrated
Based on-
plan recommendations into that schedule.
Okay.
If they approve it. I mean, they may come back and say, no, we don't agree with some of the things in here and ask for a revision to this, and then we'll have to amend this integrated plan to reflect their desires and wishes.
Okay, all right, thank you, Mayor.
We need to approve this one so you can get it submitted so they can review it. And either accept it or bring it back with changes.
Right.
And that all is time sensitive a little bit for the fact of going for bid and all that, knowing what we're gonna do and when we're gonna do it. In case we have to tweak something. Motion to approve integrated plan for submission to DNR and EPA. Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you very much for your time. Sorry I took so much.
Oh, that's fine. Thanks for coming and listening to our questions. Discuss expanded asphalt street overlay program, HR Green.
We need guidance. Sometime. Yeah, okay. Later.
Elevator or stairs?
At the November 14th workshop, we talked about what to do with the bid that we previously received for the asphalt overlay work. And the recommendation and approval was to reject that bid and then look at expanding the program. Do a little less street reconstruction and then take those and put it into the asphalt overlay program, which would almost double the amount of the program. Give it a little background. It was my understanding that the city has about $2 million in bond monies for street improvements. And from what Gary Bowden had previously told me, the city would come up with about another $500,000. So about $2.5 million total for street work. Well, the one reconstruction project we are going to do is on North Street from Highway 63 east or west 2 blocks. And we've estimated the cost of those 2 blocks at about $600,000. So removing that from that $2.5 million, plus the estimated design cost for that segment and for the overlay, there's about $1.7 million left for the construction phase for the asphalt work. Now, there's a portion of that you'll probably have to hold back for construction observation. Shouldn't be that much involved in overseeing that. Our plan there for construction observation is hopefully the wastewater treatment plant improvements are going on. We'll have the street construction work going on. We'll have the asphalt work going on. Hopefully we can get like Steve Ashbacher back to watch over all 3 of those. So there's considerable savings in having someone do kind of triple duty for you. So the construction observation for the asphalt work shouldn't be that much. That being said, you probably need to look at a target number of 1.6 to 1.7 million for the asphalt project. The bids previously received for about 23 blocks was, let's say, is 950,000. So realistically, you could probably add about another $700,000 worth of work. I gave, back towards the end of November, I had sent some information out. I don't know if you all have this map. It's an exhibit of streets that were previously in the asphalt program and then others to consider to be added. Do you have that?
I think we did.
Okay. Sorry. Because there was an accompanying
When did you
document.
say that was?
This one?
If it was yesterday, we don't have it with us.
No, I sent this out about 3 weeks ago. Okay. Okay, we're gonna be a little bit of a disadvantage here. Because one other thing I sent at that time was a map that we created, back when Danny was still around, that designates certain streets as collector roadways. To service two things, but primarily to designate those routes that carry a significant amount of traffic, and then to focus improvements, maintenance and improvements in those areas to get more bang for the buck, okay? I am going to pass out this one, so you will have it. I'll just pass it down. This is from the Iowa Pavement Management Program. It's some data from the 2017 assessment of the street conditions within Bloomfield. And there are, essentially there's 5 street condition ratings that are provided in here. They're color coded. The blue streets are in excellent condition. They're on a 100 point scale. Those excellent streets have a condition rating of, I was going to say 81 to 100. The good streets are the green ones. They have a rating of 61 to 80. Fair are the middle 20 points. Poor is the 21 to 40 points. And very poor is 0 to 20. You're looking for more of the blue streets. And I have to commend the city for the paving that's been done probably in the last 20 years. Those streets are in excellent, almost brand new condition. And I'm amazed, quite honestly, some of those streets that have 15 to 20 years on them, the great condition that they're in. For instance, West Street, Franklin, and then a number of others that are extremely good condition. The ones that are in green, a lot of them on the west side of town and on the south side of town. I caution you, a lot of those are seal coat streets. So I think those are the green ones are kind of skewed, but there's a lot of blue and green in the city. So commend yourself, give yourself a little pat on the back that a lot of the streets are in pretty good condition, and even the yellow. So, but what you got to look out for the orange and red streets. There's a lot of red in there. Those are the very poor streets, and even the poor. Yeah, there's quite a few of those too. So what we want to try to do are focus on 2 things. One, those streets that are part of that collector street system that I mentioned, and there's a nice square in the middle of town with north, west, south, and east streets, and then a few others, obviously Franklin and Jefferson and major carriers and so on and so forth. And then even Old Highway 2 going through town. So, I mean, we kind of established those arbitrarily, but it's a pretty good system of collector streets, and compare that to this condition ratings that we have here. Back on November 19th, after that workshop meeting, Evan and I toured many of these streets in town, and we came up with some recommendations for improvements, some of which are pretty obvious. And they were on your list for reconstruction about a year ago, including the streets up around the hospital. We were proposing to add to the program. We had Madison Street. I'm going to start in the northwest part of town. We had Madison Street from Short down to Locust Street in the original program. We're looking to add to both ends of that, as you discussed, instead of reconstructing Madison Street north of Short to Washington, we'd simply overlay that, and then also on the south end, extend the overlay from Locust down to Jefferson. Around the hospital, we're looking to do some badly decracked concrete pavements up there. Columbia Street
from Duffield south 2 blocks, Good Street from Columbia over to West Street, and then Davis Street from Duffield to Good Street. And those are all badly de-cracked concrete streets that need something done with them, or you're going to be doing a lot of additional maintenance. It was also mentioned previously that when we, on East Street, we added one more block to get from Chestnut down to South Street. Same as what we were overlaying north of that, so we've now got that down to South Street. We put in Jefferson for consideration from West Street to Columbia. We already did the sewer improvements from Pine to West Street this summer, which included a number of street improvements. And as we looked at that from West Street over to Columbia, it's in pretty rough shape, and it does carry a lot of traffic. It will be kind of expensive because there's a lot of curb and gutter to replace there too. So kind of brace yourselves on that one. It will take quite a bit, but it's a very busy street. And then besides that, on the south side of town, previously we had proposed doing South Street from east over to US 63. When we previously had a discussion with Earl and Danny, the suggestion was we at least go west of the highway to get past the subway there, because there's a lot of traffic moving out of there. So we thought, well, let's just keep on going. It's going to be one of the collector streets at its seal coat. We're just proposing a 3-inch cap on that, so it provides a better service, and more people will be directed to that street because it's going to ride very well. Which leads us then to Carr Street on the south, and in subsequent conversations I've had with the mayor, he suggested that one, clear on the west end, that is not paved. It's outside the corporate limits, and there's some discussions of maybe doing some project in the future with the county to make improvements with that roadway. So take that one out, and then consider paving the gravel and seal coat south of the new bridge on East Street. There's very good paving, very good concrete pavement from South Street down to the bridge. And obviously the bridge is in pretty good shape now. And then put an asphalt cap on that roadway all the way down to Highway 2.
Is that inside the city limits?
But that,
Yeah. I'll explain that to you.
we got to town a little bit early today, and so we went down and took a look at that. And pursuant to our discussions, we actually got that surveyed, and this certainly appears that we could put a heavy asphalt surface on there, maybe upwards of 6 inches for about $200,000.
Don't you think we need to go 50 or 100 foot coming off of that with?
I was going all the way from the bridge to the highway.
You don't think we need to have a concrete approach 50 or 100 foot before
Coming off the bridge.
coming off the bridge before we go to asphalt? 30
We
foot.
could, but I'm not sure we'd make too much of a difference.
Larry, would
We could come off of
I mean,
that with the concrete.
there's kind of it might help that transition.
There was about a 6 or 8 inch drop off from the bridge deck down to the existing road surface.
Well, we're gonna have to transition. We want to go a little wider, on the new asphalt road. Ideally, like to try like two 11-foot lanes and 4-foot shoulder. So that's what, 22 and 4, 26, no. 22.
Don't make anything around here any narrower.
Excuse me?
Don't make anything any narrower, we're gonna have to all buy electric cars.
Don't make it narrow.
Ours, I mean, we got, a
Well,
lot of the streets are pretty
I'm
narrow.
saying use 4-foot shoulders, because people can then walk down the shoulders, and, you know, it gives us that thickened edge where people aren't driving, and it should serve us a lot better. So I think we can do it.
Are you concerned about construction with sewer plant, big trucks running on that road, just tearing it up off the wood? Or are we gonna try to route them some other way? Cause I'm assuming we're hauling a lot of rock, what I hear.
A lot of rock.
Where's it coming from?
Well, tell them not to go that way.
Well,
We have no street
either
either into
There the bid just went up. For rock hauling, gotta go another 2 miles out of the way.
You're gonna be.
Where's it coming from? Isn't it coming from north?
It's gonna come from wherever the contractors find the best price for rock.
What kind of rock? Washed rock?
Washed river rock.
Oh, river?
Yeah.
You're coming out of somewhere or? You're gonna have fresh asphalt in either end of the, whether you're on East Street, one point or the other, so.
Is that, what phase of the project is that? Is it towards the beginning, towards the middle, end? I mean, can we do these, can we put these streets late in the fall? After a lot of that's done, so that they're not beating up the new portion? Matt,
Yes.
I mean, will they have the rock hauled by then, by midsummer?
Or maybe should we hold off on?
How much of that road benefits the city?
East Street,
Down south of the bridge.
It's heavily traveled.
Well, I know it's heavily traveled, but how much for by city residents and how much by,
I should have missed it when that bridge was closed.
I want to leave it closed till about first April, so.
I mean, I don't know, when I look at the proximity, I don't know.
I think we need to coordinate that and make sure that we don't do something
I know, I see
with that
what you're
road
saying.
prior to us hauling 1,000 ton for useful rock.
Yeah, we've already placed some constraints on the asphalt contractor because the streets right around the school. We want those done in the summer between school getting out and school starting back up. So we start placing a whole lot of restrictions and they gotta do move-in 2-3 times a year. We're gonna pay a big price.
Hold off on taking East Street to the highway until the construction.
I mean, the fact of the matter is that they're legal loads, but it could be a lot of trucks. So,
My question is, we've run into this problem in the past. When we hurry up and overlay something, have extra money, we don't think about the utilities under there. And I ran into that problem over here on West Street with the clay sewer main. So I'm just gonna put myself on record. There is clay sewer mains underneath some of these roads, so when they cave in, because the sewer mains ain't fixed, it's not my deal. You've been told. There's clay main right down there in the street you guys are talking about. So if you go and you spend the money, you overlay these roads, you don't fix the utilities under them, you might have to be digging them back up.
What did you say the expected cost was to go from the bridge to the highway?
about 200,000. That presumes 6 inches of overlay. And then just grade it and level it out. 'Cause there's a lot of crown on that street now. We have to take some of that out.
I just wonder if we need to hold off on that street till after that sewer project.
I know this isn't helping you, but, I mean, get things done in a timely manner, but, I mean, that's definitely a consideration of all the traffic that's gonna be in and out there and up and down that street.
Well, it'd just be that much less to put on the project and then.
Well, I think.
Reserve until after the sewer plant.
Well, yeah, and I think I think the biggest goal of this whole project is to try to get as many streets done as we possibly can for our in-town citizens that have drove on these bad streets all these years. I understand that's a busy street, but how many of them people pay taxes that use that street in town?
You're referring to East Street?
Yeah, East Street out to the highway.
Yeah.
I mean, we're looking at what, 3-4 years of phasing for the sewer plant to be cleared up, right? 2 years, and that's phase 1 and phase 2. Or
The sewer plant is one project, and we're estimating next summer and a portion of the following summer for construction. So a year and a half total.
and that's got phase 1 and phase 2 in that.
No, those phase 1 and phase 2 sewer improvements aren't identified of what those are. The two phases, the $1 million projects that we have are $1.25 million projects. Those have not been identified as to what those are specifically.
But we don't, they may just be like the clay tile.
Yes.
the Clay mains and stuff like that may be the $1 million.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, if I may, all those streets that I mentioned, you can't do them all. And if you take Carr Street out, and then you do all these others, not East Street, that's about 17 blocks of additional work. And like I said, that 2 blocks of Jefferson from west to Columbia, they're going to be fairly expensive, as I said, because of curb and gutter. I think that's going to be about all you can do, anyway.
I think that's a good,
You're gonna get rid of a lot of red stuff.
that's probably good to go out for bid. And I mean, if we got a couple 100,000 or something left over, we can always wait a year until we get all the traffic done and then do South Street or do East Street.
Doesn't hurt to have a little money in the bank. That gets you about 40 blocks. That's a lot of work. You'll see a big improvement in the system.
I like that plan.
Okay.
Is that what you wanted to hear?
Yep.
That's part of what tore the 3 blocks of East Street up was the construction traffic from Franklin Street.
Say that again?
When they redid Franklin Street,
Yeah.
all the trucks used East Street. And that was what really put the hammer down on those 3 blocks of
Okay.
East Street.
From south north up to Franklin.
Okay.
And while we're talking streets, are you working on or a seal code thing? Seal code plan
Well, yes.
to make sure that we stay on top of what we've got and we don't let what we've got get out of hand?
Yeah. I mentioned before, the best time to appraise the streets to seal coat are in the early spring, like March, when the frost is just going out. Then you can really see if the surface is deteriorating. So we'll work on that early spring.
Because we may need some of this.
You know, you'd
money
mentioned
for some of it.
$50,000 for seal coating, and that's probably a pretty good number.
I mean, I just figured if you just did that annually.
Yeah. Yep.
Get you a little more every year to keep up on what you had done. Because if you get too far behind, it costs about as much to fix it as it does to overlay it.
If you wait too long, the price will triple. So timing is important with seal coat, maintaining them, and providing good service.
Jeremy does bring up a good point. There's nothing I hate more than seeing a new street go down than tearing it up to fix a utility under it. It should have been fixed before.
Or a water leak.
We were just talking about this $1.25 million projects that we have online, of looking at the clay tile areas that are going under new streets and getting those sewers lined right away here so that it doesn't lead to a collapse that does require digging. If we can do that through lining under them and solidify that so that it takes that worry off everybody's mind, that's, I think, a good use of that to identify some projects that we could start with at least.
Not that machine, they come in and put that poly liner inside what's already existing.
Yep. Put a big sock, invert a big sock in the sewer and cure it so that it's hard and restores all the structural integrity and eliminates leaks, cracks, that sort of stuff in those.
My county's done some of that, I think, on some culverts.
If I might, just off the subject a little bit. At that last workshop on November 14th, I gave you a proposal on the sewer replacement on Franklin out east and on Morningside, wherever else. when we came down to look at the overlay streets, we met with Jeremy and Lane out there. And because of them, we came up with an extremely good, another solution. And to get those sewers out of behind those houses and such.
I think me and you talked about this.
Yes, and well, yeah. The Franklin sewer, if you remember, we were going to replace that east to just past the second house, east of Hillcrest. Stop there, and we're done. Those houses that are east of there go into the sewer behind them in the alley. And then some houses that on the other, behind them, that front on Morningside, also go into that sewer. And that sewer is inaccessible. There's trees, fences, sheds, everything else back in there. So we want to abandon all of that line back in there. And we can do it by extending 2 lines up from Morningside in 2 existing right-of-ways. You can't see them, but one is kind of a gravel access going north off of Morningside. The other is simply grass in the yards. And we're proposing to do a sewer extension from Morningside to half a block north at 2 locations. I think there's 1, 2, 3, like 6 or 7 homes that would tie into the manholes at the end of those 2 lines. And
When we do that, does the city then pay for the new laterals?
say it
The
again?
new laterals to hook the houses up, I think the city pays for that.
Yes,
When we relocate.
yeah, we'll connect all of those homes.
We have easements and right of ways and everything for
I think,
this.
Jeremy, we may have to get on some private properties to make this connection, correct?
That's correct.
And Jeremy's going to make all that happen. Well, most of it will be done within those existing right-of-ways that exist. We have to get on, we may not have to get on private property.
You gotta get on private property, take the laterals from them 2 homes that are in the backyard and run down to the manhole.
Okay. So we'll make those arrangements, so that's kind of the direction we're proceeding on those. So it really helped to gather everybody out there, and we came up with what I think is going to be a far cheaper solution. There's no trenchless installations, and we're gonna make some tremendous improvements.
So
So I thank Jeremy and Lane for that.
you're getting a price
Yes,
for that?
yep. Work will start in the spring and be done by May 1st.
Are we on track to go to bid with this and the streets?
What's that again?
Go to bid with the streets, are we on track to go to bid with that?
Yes.
What were we thinking? Were we thinking January?
For
Go
the
to
letting
bid.
for that?
Yeah.
I think we're probably looking at an early March letting for the Asphalt.
Okay.
We want to have plans done in about a month. And then you'll take action at probably your first meeting in February to set the letting and hearing and award dates.
So can you send us for me and I can forward it?
Yes, we'll give you a revised map
Each
for the
street
one.
from point A to point B as far as what we're,
Yep, we'll revise this map and get it back.
we can have that before long. Everybody can look at it and then if there's any.
You'll have it tomorrow. Okay? And we'll also make sure that you get copies of that collector street map and an electronic copy of this road conditions map. Okay? We'll even throw in a new plan for the sewer.
Anything else for the asphalt project?
Nope, that's good. Thank you very much.
Thanks for the, Anybody got any questions for them? Motion to approve payment of invoices to HR Green. Pavement study, 5,000, SRF project application, 352176, asphalt paving project, 50,000, intake at Jefferson and Highway 63, downtown sidewalk improvement, 3498. CDBG sanitary sewer,
11-1. SRF sponsored project application 5550.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Approve Bloomfield Bridge and Culvert change order for the East Street Bridge project in the amount of minus $3,130.50.
Due to the time of year, we're asking to eliminate the seeding and fertilizing rather than carry the contract out for spray. Usually what we do with like the county, so we'll take care of it in the spring on our own. And then there's a couple items that we didn't end up using. And then all said and done, well, the original approved bridge price was $228, $409.50. Then after the approval of the paving, it went up to $240, and our final project is gonna be $216,750.
Make a motion to accept the change order.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Approve final pay voucher from Bloomfield Bridge and Culvert. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Approve payment to Drish Construction for work completed on the intake at the corner of Jefferson and Highway 63 in the amount of $25,676.90.
Approved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Approve appointment of interim city administrator as liaison to the complete count committee.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Approve community economic development director job description.
Mayor, that was, just to give you a little bit of background on this one, Councilman Garrett found a sample job description. So we took from that and added some items that were more specific to the community development, and also inclusive of that would be economic development. We merged those. That's why you see the title position as a community/economic development director, and this person would, whoever city decides to hire, would serve in that capacity. I know code enforcement is an item that's listed. That's more of a monitoring item. That's not to say that that person would not be, going out on inspections on all other items being equal. If you have any questions or comments about those, I'd be happy to take those. You can see an additional sheet that Councilman Garrett and I have talked about adding, and that's the physical demands. Came from a previous job description. I thought it was pretty well in order. I don't know whether Councilman has anything else to add to that, but I think we came up with some good suggestions to augment that.
Mainly, it was just what we already had on file for job description. There was a few places you could tell where we got it from a city that had a manager. They were still manager instead of administrator.
We changed that, yeah.
A few places, and some of the code enforcement, and there was some DPW more items rather than economic and development.
Maybe you recall at one time discussion we had that I believe in 2006 was the last time there was a job description was specific to economic development. So we tried to, quite frankly, take the community and the economic and merge them together. It seemed like a good idea, to me anyway, to combine the two. Otherwise, you're paying two salaries. If you have any questions on that, or you want to see additional changes or something, simply let me know. I'll see that.
there need to be anything in here, and I haven't read it through it all, that states anything about working with Main Street, DC as far as.
It doesn't necessarily name them, but it does apply to working with other organizations in the community.
Mr. Arnett, it's probably somewhat implied when you look at the second paragraph under job summary. It talks about budget management, administration, operational direction, references planning, community development functions. That is an item that probably is going to take shape, I would argue, depending on who the city decides to hire for this position, that it'll have both of those components of it. But certainly one of the items I know that Councilman and I talked about was working with and reaching out to some of the stakeholders. There's another item that came up, and that was, as it wrote, this item number 10 on the second page, monitors national and statewide developments in planning, economic community development, evaluates the impact of city programs, operations, implements department processes, and it also represents the city in regional conferences and other forums. I don't believe we have represented that before. If memory serves me, I think the community development director position previously, Paul had that. So when he left and took another position, my understanding is again to try and create a combination to have the community and economic development working side by side and have it defined a little bit better. I don't think it was defined particularly well the last time, and I think this adds some sustenance to it.
Anybody got any questions on the job description? Motion to approve? So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Approve liquor license renewal for Southern Iowa Beef Supply Market.
Move to approve.
Second.
Earl,
No.
Matt,
Yes.
Darren,
Yes.
Jack,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Approve certificate of occupancy and buildings incentive payment for 725 Northwest Street.
It looked from the report like sign off on it, but
This isn't done willy-nilly, it's just done without a lot of paperwork trail yet. I had a conversation with Mr. Davidson, and we got one more house, I think, that's probably close to being ready to be inspected. We're gonna use the same plan we used, and we're gonna, till before spring, we're gonna sit down with him and come up with a form, checklist, and, do we need to do 2 or 3 inspections throughout the process and kind of get some input from him, because he's got experience and knowledge in that field. We're gonna sit down with him and come up with a plan to put in the packet so that when the people fill out the paperwork to build the house, they know what's expected of them before they start, not after they're done.
Mayor, one of the items that came up, as I recall you mentioned was, and it's just a question, is that something we're gonna put out for bid? I think we've had a pretty good working relationship with Steve, but that was an item you mentioned.
Well, I mean, as far as that's just talking to him as far as helping get this plan put together, but once we get it done, we get put out for bid for who we're gonna have do the inspections. Or,
make sure where their sump pumps go.
but I mean, that's just, so,
Okay.
that's not, it's just information. The motion to approve, let's see,
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Approve a 3-year pump maintenance agreement with Central Pump and Motor for lift stations in the amount of $29.95 a year.
Looked pretty reasonable to me.
Did our 3-year agreement run out? Did I see that somewhere too?
Yeah.
They just completed the first one of the 3 years, and they didn't up their price, it's the same. So, and another thing I wanted to throw in there, it's off topic of this, but it's similar, we're talking about the lift stations and the maintenance of them. Talked to Andy earlier today, and I got a phone call from a corporate office from OmniSite. So I think it was a good thing that we drug our feet on the last 2 things that you guys approved for me, the last 2 meetings. So OmniSite now, since we haven't done them yet, they're going to send down all the upgrade equipment, and Lane and I are gonna fix 5 of them. So you guys approved a bill for $4,000 for the 5 lift stations. I called Electric Pump today and told them that the $4,000 contract and the $6,000 contract, that I canceled them. Because OmniSite's also going to offer us to buy, because it was going to cost you like $6,000 for OmniSite. And none of this information was brought up till this morning. So instead of us paying $6,000 to have them come down and put in one of those OmniSites, there's 2 of them, which is down the sewer plant, that we can't upgrade, so we have to buy new. So what they're saying is, since we're the one changing, going from 3G to 4G, if you trade in them other 2 units, we will give you brand new ones for $800 a piece. So I've already told them that I'm done, I'm canceling what you guys approved. I don't know if it was right or wrong, but I had to make action because I was on the schedule for them to come down the 6th of January to install the $4,000 worth of equipment that Lane and I is gonna do ourselves. So it went from over a $10,000 project to possibly $1,600 to $2,000. So the next time you have a meeting, you'll probably see another OmniSite. And what that's gonna be is, we're trading 2 in, and we're buying 2 for $1,600 instead of buying 1 for $6,000.
Sounds good.
So that was just something I found out this morning. But this maintenance contract, I've had the same guy do all my maintenance contracts when he worked for Electric Pump. And what I like about this particular company is it's 2 guys and a wife. So they come down, they do amazing work, because if they don't, they lose the business, and it's just, they're a small business, and they come from Electric Pump, and they started their own. So, I mean, I can go out and get another bid for this, but I prefer staying with the same people that I trust on working with my equipment. Because those pumps ain't cheap to replace. So I guess that's my recommendation. If you want another bid,
No, I'm fine with it.
can
I
get
just
one.
was, I just remember our agreement had either just come up or was just getting ready to renew, and that's what.
this will be good for
I was just understanding. for sure
September,
what this was.
October of 2020 on for the next 3 years.
Motion to approve.
Move to approve.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
I need a second.
Second. Give it to Jack, it's his last one. Approve claims as presented. I got a question, and I don't know if it's not necessarily, I mean, it's about claims, I guess, but it's not probably on here, but in the KISS flow program, if we get a PO for something, and you type in a comment, want more information, or you reject it, where does it go or what happens to it?
It's my understanding that if you request more information, it goes back to the person who initiated it.
That's correct. So then does that person fall off the face of the earth because I never get any reply?
We just, on there, we type in what our comments are and we just push response. And where it goes, I don't know. If it goes,
Because I've rejected 2 or 3 and put, want more information or whatever on a certain PO, and I've never seen the PO again, and I've never got a response. And I never see it again ever, I don't know.
I
That
think
goes back,
if you
does that essentially go back to Alicia then? And I don't know I don't know there's a comment section though, is there?
I don't think it would go to Alicia, no.
Well, it's essentially approval or disapproval. I don't, because the mayor and I talked about that, I don't know that there's a box or a narrative then for.
I
Question.
think if you reject it, it just dies.
Right.
So then what happens to it?
Well, typically with, and again, I go back to Alicia, the ones that come through that are at or below our spending limits. And 9 times out of 10, we pass those along. I'll go ahead and do this because it's not uncommon then, leading up to the council meeting when the girls in the office will say, you know, we have to get the claims list together and you have 5 or 6 waiting lists. I would argue the mayor and I are good about checking the boxes off those and sending the easy ones in. Even the ones that are north of that, 75,000, 100,000, whatever the case may be, all items being equal, what I do on those, I'll go visit with Alicia or someone else to make sure that's a thumbs up to get it on the claims list. That doesn't answer though the mayor's question though, and I don't have a specific answer, and that is if you request additional, if you want additional background information or information period, KISS flow, my takeaway is essentially it's a tracking system for expenses. And I don't think I don't think it's part of their responsibility anyway. They don't really go north of that. You know, it's simply an approval mechanism, so you have a chain when someone purchases something.
If you can give me a list of ones you rejected or you.
Well, the latest one I know is the KISS flow program. There was a PO approving to purchase the KISS flow program for another year, and I rejected it, and I wanted more information, and I've never seen it again, and I tried to look through here, I didn't see it on here.
So there's a difference between reject and clarify or the clarity options. When you reject, that just stops it, and then the clarify or the clarity option, that's what signifies, please provide more information.
But is there a clear, I don't want to talk out of school here, is it, to that point though, is there I guess, a mechanism, is there it essentially comes to it as approve, or you call it up and then you look at it and you approve it. But at that point then, if you reject it, it sits there and fallow and nothing happens to it. I don't recall, is there an icon that says reject?
Yes.
Clear at the bottom.
Clear at the bottom?
Last thing on the page. The only way I can get it to take a comment is to reject it. If I write a comment and want to return it or whatever, it won't go anywhere unless I either approve it, reject it, or you said there's another option?
Should be, I think it says clarify, or I think it says clarify, like clarity or clarify.
Maybe I'll try that one.
So if you hit reject then, does it bring up then that field?
I thought if you hit reject, basically all it is you're not approving it, but it's still in the system so somebody's aware that there's more information needed or wanted, or that I've at least done something with it and I've not ignored it.
Yeah, but again, what I'm trying to wrap my mind around though, is when you hit reject though, is there a field that you can go to and type in,
Yeah,
need additional
at the bottom it says comment, and if you write a comment, then you hit, there's like 2 or 3 options you can choose.
And then it's a question of whether or not, does KISS Flow commonly respond to those? And answering those questions? If I say, I need more information, you say, I need more information, does it go to the 4 winds, or does it go to them where they provide
I don't know where it goes.
I've got some from like Sandy before, and I've responded to it and sent it back to her, and then it's went through.
But do you hit
So
reject?
It could
No, I don't
be,
even reject.
it could be a situation that, the people haven't followed up on your rejection. It could be still sitting in the progress.
What button do you hit?
I don't know without seeing the screen.
There's, at the bottom of the, right, you don't have this here, the bottom of the screen is, there's approve, at the very bottom, to the right hand of that screen. Typically, you click on that, or when it comes up, when it comes up on your line item, or when it comes up on your laptop, you can just, there's an approve, you can check then. What I usually do is I hit that, and then I go and check and make sure it says, this has been removed. And once it's been removed, I ignore it.
But I normally just open it. Here's an example, Visa for $9.84. There's an approve symbol right here at the top. And I hit approve. You don't have to go into it, you don't have to look at it, you can just approve it. And that's normally what I do. If I've got a question, then I open it, look at it, read it, and go down through it and see what it is. And then at the bottom of that, there's a place to comment.
Have you tried opening it on a computer as opposed to your phone to see if maybe there's another button when you open it on a computer?
I don't have a computer in my pocket.
No, no, but I mean, not tonight, but I mean, have you tried that? I'm just.
I haven't, no, but I get yelled at if I don't approve them about as fast as I get them.
I'm just saying, sometimes I can see more things when I open on a computer than I can on my phone.
And it's possible, I just happen to, I was just asking the questions, because if I'm doing it wrong, I want to be able to do it right, so that the information's getting to the people it needs to get to.
Well, I don't think you should reject it unless you just absolutely do not want to pay it.
Well, I didn't want to pay it, but I wanted more. I'm not saying I don't want to pay it at some point, but I didn't want to pay that one at that time. So if it throws it out, so then how do they know? I mean, so then you gotta create another PO for the
We probably
same
don't
thing?
know that it's been rejected.
It'll send you something back or comment or rejection. Like mine, I got a situation, if I I'm gonna go back in tomorrow from the ones that I just told you about that I canceled, and I'll go back into them and I can push a button and say withdrawal.
Mhm.
And then I can go back and look at my withdrawal account, and then it'll tell me all the ones that I've withdrawn.
Well, I know there's 2 or 3 different options.
I mean, do they have a mobile app? You need to download.
Let's go down to practice rejection or clarifying.
I'll send you 10 tonight.
Huh?
I can send you 10 of them.
That's actually not a joke, you'll.
Oh, don't worry, I got 18 of them. We'll get it good. At 6:52 every night, I get every one of them that I've seen all day long again. And I'll get them again tomorrow night. And I think is there some way to fix that? I mean, there really isn't any reason for us to see anything under $100. That should just automatically go to the list, shouldn't be done.
There isn't, but that's how it's set up. You have to change the way the program goes through the chain of command.
We have to track it, even if it were.
But anything that, just because we approve the PO, it's still on here.
That's correct, yeah.
And we're not saying that you can go buy it. All we're doing is approving it to be put on the claims list so the council can make the decision as to whether they want it or not, or to be put on the agenda if it's over 2,500 for us to approve.
Now, I think the exception, and they made an exception though for clothing. So that was one of the, or an emergency purchase, I know that one away. I thought clothing was another one that.
I don't know if anything about.
Just automatic pilot, you would have, if those came in essence, you would already pay for those, but the lion's share of them, you're right. That's why you guys are going to the claims list, is to approve what staff has passed on, approve, confirm, or deny.
Somebody got any more questions about the claims list?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Public comments? Andy, you got anything to report?
Sure. Mayor, I want to bring you up to speed on the budget schedule. This is an item you've probably seen in some of the weekly reports that I've reported to all of you in terms of what Sandy and I are working on to put together. First of all, there is a budget schedule in front of you. This is the one that Sandy put in front of everyone. I do want to provide just one item of clarification when it indicates handout preliminary department request. I've indicated in a couple of previous weekly reports, I've met with all of the employees. I met with the division chiefs and police and fire. In addition to that, also the divisions that are with inside public works, the 5 of them. So I've interviewed all those folks. They put their budget requests together. I have a narrative, a sheet that you'll see what their feedback was. I did not change any of their numbers at all. I think what we need to do now, just for the sake of clarity and brevity, is go in and I need to go back and look at those numbers and start filling in those budget sheets, even if we have to type them in or write them in, something such as that, so council will have that in front of them. I have all the data. That's something I need to get to work on. The other item I will just mention in tandem with this, and that is, one of the items we have to look at on the revenue side is the amount of money that the city receives in property tax revenue. And you recall the rollback, which the legislature implemented, I think, when I was out of town. I want to say that was in 2009, maybe 2008. I won't bore you with all the intricacies of the property tax rollback, other than just as the name implies, as time goes on, that amount of money, that percent of money we receive in the property taxes, for the cities anyway, goes down, down, and down to eventually equalize whatever the residential rate is. I reached out to the assessor's office, county assessor's office here this morning, and it was a little bit late, but I reached out to them and asked them if I could set up a meeting to talk about the property valuation report and the effect that has on rollback. The property tax rollback for FY21 will be 55.0743%. That's 2% below the current one. So obviously, not to bore you to death with all this, one of the items certainly I want to find out in visiting with the assessor's office is, again, it gets us to the end of the year, and that is, what is the specific property valuation? Because at that point, then we can go back and compute plus or minus what we're going to be receiving in our property taxes. I don't really have anything else on that, other than I'll keep you posted on my meetings with the assessor's office. As I said, I sent an email to them today. I don't know whether, Sandy, you have anything to add to the budget process other than the dates that we have set up, anything you want to add?
No, just come prepared.
I'll let you know when I come up with it.
Are you gonna bring us the info, are you gonna give us the information? Very good.
You said come prepared. I'm not sure what that means. But anyway, I'll let you know when I come up with the revenue. We have the expenditure request in, that's the easy one. There are some revenue estimates we have from a previous report. I was going to visit with you today, Sandy. That's really hard for me to read and make out, so we may have to kind of start from scratch on that one. But I want to make sure the revenue estimates are there. Mayor, that's all I have, unless you or any of the council members have any questions or comments.
We are behind schedule, so we're gonna have to do a lot of work and work fast.
Well, I guess while we're looking at the schedule, I've had, everybody's asked me if we're having a meeting on the 2nd. Looks like they got one planned here.
Okay.
For a budget work session, a regular council meeting.
Are we not having the budget work session?
Well, Mayor, when you and I talked, I remember you said that was a meeting probably, again, it's the day after New
Well,
Year's.
everybody was asking me, and I hadn't seen the schedule yet. That's my fault. But normally on the 2nd, we've got 42 committees that we gotta appoint people to. We're gonna hash over the possible bringing the liaisons back to the departments. We've got different stuff like that. We gotta probably do claims. So I figured if nothing else, I mean, if you were back at home and didn't wanna come up for the meeting on the second, we can do that without.
Yeah, if you're gonna do the claims, obviously, I don't need to sit on that. If we're talking about structuring, as you said, some of the budget matters, I probably need.
But that's what I'm saying, are we gonna have this budget work session then that night, or are we gonna?
I don't know, Sam, I think what you just put.
I just put this together according to council meetings. If you don't wanna have it, then we don't have to. I mean.
I still think we need to have the meeting on the second to get all of our committees and get all that out of the way, so let's just not have the budget portion of that meeting on the second.
Right.
That way then we got all that done.
Right. As I said, I'll work on those revenue estimates.
But I just still think we'll have a meeting on the second.
So essentially, again, that will be claims for the most part then?
Claims and our, what is there,
Appointments.
15 or 20 or 30 committees that we got.
Yeah, appointments.
Yeah, appointments we got to make.
Jake's dying to get on some committees.
I understand I'm already on one.
That's what happens when you don't show up.
Let's see, Director of Public Works, nothing there, other than, did a pretty good job getting the streets cleaned off when it snowed. With conversation with any of the employees, I think everything's going smooth and good right now as far as everything.
I didn't even hear any complaints around town about the streets not being clean.
Everything's concerned, so, I think the Public Works Department's holding its own right now. Any council updates? Mayor comments, I don't really have that SRF thing that I brought up during that, and I would like to commend our Public Works Department, all of our employees for doing a good job and picking up the slack and taking care of their departments and stuff in the absence of DPW, keeping everything up and running good. Keeping everything on task and in line, not falling behind on anything. I think that everybody's stepped up to the plate. Closed session. Closed session pursuant to Iowa Code 21.51C to discuss strategy with council and those that are presently in litigation or litigation is imminent where its disclosure would be likely to prejudice or disadvantage the position of the governmental body in that litigation.
Let me swear in before that.
I don't know, it's after. Just asking.
Do you have the swearing in thing?
Was you wanting to take a picture or do anything, Karen? Would it be best to do it
Well, if
now?
I'd have known, I'd have brought the good camera. The iPhone will probably work.
I've used it on other occasions when I've had to.
When you get faces like ours, iPhone's probably better.
Use those Snapchat filters with it.
I'm an awesome bunny, I'll tell you.
Well, you're first on the list, Earl.
Okay.
That's separate one.
Separate one?
No.
Okay. Dan, go ahead and I'll take one picture with both.
Okay.
I, Earl Howard,
I, Earl Howard,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States
of the United
and
States
the Constitution of the State of Iowa,
and the Constitution of the State of Iowa,
and that I will faithfully and impartially,
and I will faithfully and impartially,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
discharge all duties of the office of council,
discharge all the duties of the office of council,
member of the city of Bloomfield,
member of the city of Bloomfield,
as now or hereafter required by law.
as now or hereafter required by law.
Welcome to 4 more years.
You're welcome.
I, Jake Bohai,
I, Jake Bullock,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Iowa,
and the Constitution of the State of Iowa,
and that I will faithfully and impartially,
and that I will faithfully and impartially,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
discharge all the duties of the office
discharge all the duties of the office
of council member of the city of Bloomfield,
of council member of the city of Bloomfield,
as now or hereafter required by law.
as now or hereafter required by law.
Well,
Yeah, I don't care. You two councils stand together.
That's,
Oh, Matt, that's right.
At 1:30.
one, you got one.
Sorry. No. Apologize, Matt.
I'm Matt Cronin.
I'm Matt Cronin.
Do solemnly swear
solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Iowa,
and the Constitution of the State of
and
Iowa,
I will faithfully and impartially,
that I will faithfully and impartially,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
discharge all the duties of the office
discharge all the duties of the office
of council member of the city of Bloomfield,
of council member of the city of Bloomfield,
as now or hereafter required by law.
as now or hereafter required by law.
Congratulations, 4 more years.
You guys here together.
okay.
And then Dan, if you can kind of face them, just like you were doing, but we got 3 guys standing. You want your hands raised, guys? Make it look like, there you go. Now it looks official. Dan, can you move this way, Dan?
Gonna fit us all in.
Okay, I think we can make that work. Thank you.
Next, we can all jump on him.
Jump on him. That still hurt my arm.
Appreciate it. I have my own copies.
We need a motion for a closed
We need a
session.
motion to go into closed session.
So moved.
Second.
Yeah, I never saw a final. Am I invited to the closed session, or do you want me not in a closed session?
I think he should be, because he'll be, in 2 weeks, he'll be
No,
involved.
one question on that. When we were talking about this earlier, I don't know there was a question of